displacement time graph. So if the slope is constant, it means that velocity is constant. So whenever the displacement time graph is a straight line, it would imply that its slope is constant, which would imply that its velocity is constant. Now let's have a look at a displacement time graph where the graph is not a straight line. So here, as you can see, that the graph between displacement and time is not a straight line, and so its slope is also not constant. So if the slope is not constant, it means that the velocity is changing, the velocity is not uniform. So we can write that if slope is not constant, it means that velocity is not uniform, which will imply that there is some acceleration or deceleration. So in this particular graph, we can see that the slope of the graph is increasing with the time. So the slope of the graph is nothing but ds by dt, which is our velocity. So here we can see that the slope of the graph is increasing with time, which means that the velocity is increasing with time. So here we have a case of acceleration. Now let's have a look at another displacement time graph. So here we can see that the slope of displacement time graph is decreasing with time. So this is the case of deceleration. Also, there is a point on this curve where the slope is 0. This is that point. And since the slope of displacement time curve is nothing but the velocity of the particle, so this is the point where the velocity of particle becomes 0. And after this point, the velocity of the particle changes direction. So if you want to interpret this graph, so let's say that at time t is equal to 0, the velocity was v1, and because of deceleration, this velocity keeps decreasing until it reaches the value 0, and after that the velocity of the particle changes direction. Now let's have a look at distance time graph. Distance time graph is a graph between distance traveled by the particle and the time. This graph is always monotonically increasing, since the distance traveled by the particle cannot decrease with respect to the time. So there are some similarities between displacement time graph and distance time graph. Till the magnitude of displacement is increasing with time, distance time graph also follows displacement